I don't think I can continue like this anymore. Those were the first words my wife Jane said to me after walking through our front door with her rolling suitcase, after 5 days in what she called a business trip to San Diego. She stood there in our entryway, designer carry-on at her feet, wearing that rehearsed expression I'd seen her practice for client presentations. Confident, apologetic, final. My name is Edwin Rodriguez. I'm 34 years old, a software developer who built a company from scratch, and the man who just heard his marriage end in 9 words. I was sitting at our kitchen table when she arrived, laptop closed in front of me. Normally I'd be typing, debugging code, answering emails at 7 in the evening. But tonight I just sat there, hands folded, waiting. Jane noticed immediately. Her eyes flickered to the closed laptop, then to my face, searching for the reaction she expected: shock, hurt, desperate questions about what she meant. Instead, I stood up slowly and walked to the coffee maker. Coffee? I asked, my voice steady as bedrock. She hesitated, her prepared speech clearly disrupted by my calmness. The handle of her suitcase slipped from her fingers. Edwin, I'm trying to tell you something important. I know, I said, pouring 2 cups into the matching mugs we got in Seattle 3 years ago, back when we still took trips together instead of her taking trips away from me. Sit down, Jane. She moved to the table like someone approaching a trap, lowering herself into the chair across from mine. I slid her coffee forward, black, 2 sugars, exactly how she's taken it for 7 years. Her hands wrapped around the mug and I noticed they were shaking slightly. I've been thinking a lot on this trip, she continued, her voice gaining manufactured strength. About us. About whether I can continue like this. Whether we're still. Continue what, Jane? I interrupted gently. The marriage, or the lying? Please, before I continue, kindly like, share and subscribe for more interesting videos. Her face drained of color. For 3 seconds, Jane just stared at me, her mouth partially open, coffee forgotten. I watched her mind race, trying to calculate how much I knew, what I'd found, whether she could still spin this into something manageable. Let me take you back 3 months. November, a Tuesday evening. Jane came home from work and kissed me on the cheek. Not the lips, the cheek. It was the kind of kiss you give a relative at Thanksgiving, polite and distant. She smelled like expensive perfume I didn't recognize, something citrus and floral that definitely wasn't the Chanel No. 5 I'd bought her for our anniversary. Long day? I asked. Exhausting, she said, already moving toward the bedroom, phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. I'm going to shower. 2 months before that, September, I noticed she'd changed her phone passcode. We'd always known each other's codes, not because we checked each other's phones but because trust meant transparency. One morning I asked to borrow her phone to look up a restaurant while mine was charging. She physically flinched, then laughed it off. Oh, I changed it. Work security policy. Here, I'll look it up for you. She never told me the new code. 1 month before tonight's confrontation, December, I found a receipt in her coat pocket while hanging it up. Auberge du Soleil, Napa Valley. $240 dinner. The date was stamped December 3rd. The same night she video called me from her hotel room in Seattle, complaining about terrible room service. I didn't confront her. I photographed the receipt with my phone, put it back exactly where I found it, and stood alone in our bedroom holding her coat. The fabric still smelled like that unfamiliar perfume. That's when I knew I wasn't going crazy. I was going to war. My father taught me something when I was 14, right before my parents divorced. He discovered my mother's affair 2 years before he filed, but he said nothing. He just prepared. Moved money, consulted lawyers, documented everything. When he finally served her papers, she was blindsided. I watched my father rebuild his life while my mother scrambled. I learned then that emotion is a handicap when the other person has already decided. Back in our kitchen, Jane set down her coffee mug with trembling hands. Edwin, you don't understand. I just need space to figure out what I want, what we... Her phone buzzed on the table between us. The screen lit up with a text preview. Jay, did you tell him yet? Jane's hand shot out like a viper strike, snatching the phone, but I'd already seen it. My expression didn't change. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Jonathan? I asked quietly. The color that had drained from her face earlier now rushed back in a crimson wave. How do you... We're just colleagues. He's checking in about a work project. Colleagues who take weekend trips to Carmel together? I set my mug down with deliberate care. Colleagues who text at 11 at night? Colleagues who make my wife forget to wear her wedding ring. Jane looked down at her left hand instinctively. Her ring finger was bare, marked only by a pale tan line where her wedding band should have been. I watched the realization dawn on her face. She'd forgotten to put it back on after her trip. After being with him. I reached for my phone, unlocked it and slid it across the table. On the screen was a screenshot from Jonathan's Instagram story, posted 2 days ago and quickly deleted. But I'd captured it. The image showed a woman's hand holding a champagne glass against a sunset backdrop. No ring. Jane's distinctive silver bracelet caught the golden light. Her nail polish, that specific shade of burgundy she'd gotten done before her business trip. "You forgot he posts everything," I said. "Or maybe you thought I wouldn't see it. That I'd never think to check." Jane stared at the photo, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. "Edwin, I can explain. It's not what you think. We were just celebrating closing a major account and—" "Stop." My voice was calm, almost gentle. "Just stop lying, Jane. We're past that now. I need to take you back further to understand how I got here." 2 months ago, in early December, Jane announced another business trip. Seattle, 3 days regional conference. She'd been taking more trips lately. Her promotion to regional director 9 months earlier came with travel requirements. At least that's what she told me. Something felt wrong about this one. The way she packed, folding clothes with unusual care. The way she checked her appearance in the mirror 3 times before leaving. The way she kissed my cheek and said, "I'll miss you," with a brightness that felt performed. After she left, I sat in my home office staring at my computer screen. My cursor hovered over her company's website. I clicked through to their events page. No Seattle conference listed. I checked again, going back 3 months, forward 2 months. Nothing. My hands were sweating when I picked up my phone and dialed her company's main line. "Hi, this is Edwin Rodriguez," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "My wife Jane Rodriguez is in your marketing department. I'm trying to confirm the dates for the Seattle Regional Conference she mentioned. I want to book a surprise dinner reservation." The receptionist put me on hold. Soft jazz played for 45 seconds that felt like hours. "Sir?" She came back on the line, her voice professional but confused. "I've checked with our events coordinator. We don't have any conferences scheduled in Seattle this quarter. We did have one in Portland last month, but that's our only Pacific Northwest event." I thanked her and hung up, then sat in my car in our driveway for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. That evening, I opened our shared phone plan account online. I downloaded 3 months of call logs. One number appeared repeatedly, sometimes 5 or 6 calls a day. Late night texts. Early morning calls. I ran the number through a reverse lookup. Jonathan Carter. Regional Sales Director. Same company as Jane. Same business trips. In our kitchen, Jane was crying now, dabbing at her eyes with the sleeve of her blouse. "So you've been spying on me? That's your response? Instead of talking to me like an adult, you've been collecting evidence like some kind of detective?" I stood up without answering, walked to my home office and returned carrying a manila folder. It was thick, organized with colored tabs, the kind of meticulous documentation I used for software project proposals. I placed it on the table in front of her with a soft thud. "You're right," I said. "Let's talk. Like adults." Jane stared at the folder like it might contain a bomb. Slowly she opened it. The first page was a photograph, her and Jonathan kissing outside a condo building I didn't recognize. The timestamp read November 18th, 9:42 p.m. She flipped to the next page. Another photo, the two of them entering a hotel together, his hand on the small of her back in a gesture of possession I recognized because I used to touch her that way. She kept flipping. Credit card statements with charges highlighted in yellow, romantic restaurants, wine bars, boutique hotels. Phone records showing Jonathan's number called 127 times over 3 months. Hotel booking confirmations forwarded to an email address I'd managed to access. Printed text message conversations my private investigator had obtained through methods I didn't ask about and didn't want to know. One text exchange made her freeze. "I miss the taste of your skin," from Jonathan. Her response, "Tuesday can't come soon enough." Tuesday was supposed to be her late night at the office. Jane's hands shook so violently the papers rattled. How did you get all of this? "You wanted a conversation, Jane. Here it is." I sat back down, my voice eerily calm even to my own ears. Every lie dated and documented. Every hotel room. Every deleted text message. Every time you said you loved me while texting him. It's all there. Jane pushed the folder away like it was contaminated, her breathing rapid and shallow. She grabbed her phone with shaking fingers, unlocking it and opening our banking app. I watched her face as she navigated to our joint savings account. The account that had held $47,000 3 months ago now showed $3,200. Where's? She looked up at me, eyes wide with panic. Edwin, where's all our money? I slid another document across the table, this one printed on law firm letterhead. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, but financial preparation isn't illegal. I moved my premarital assets back into protected accounts, the money I made before we married. I paid off your car loan completely. The title is in your name only now. You're welcome. I sold the boat we bought 2 years ago and deposited your half, $23,000, directly into your personal checking account. I documented every transaction. Jane's face cycled through emotions: confusion, anger, fear, calculation. You've been planning this? For how long? You've been planning to leave for 6 months, Jane, I said, my voice still maddeningly level. I've been planning to let you go. I'm just better at execution. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against our hardwood floor. This is insane. You can't just take our money and... I can't. I did. And my attorney says every action I took was within legal bounds. I leaned back in my chair watching her. I protected assets I brought into the marriage. I made sure you got your fair share of what we built together. I even did you favors, paying off your car, handling the boat sale cleanly. Any judge will see I was more than fair. Jane's face twisted with rage. Your attorney? When did you? I'm calling my lawyer right now. You should, I said, nodding. Her name is Rebecca Chin. Best divorce attorney in Portland. I consulted with her 6 weeks ago. Conflict of interest rules mean she can't represent you now. I've actually consulted with the top 3 family law attorneys in the city. I need to tell you about a moment that happened 3 weeks before this confrontation because it explains the man I became. I sat in Thomas Brennan's law office on a gray January afternoon. Thomas was a 62-year-old divorce attorney with silver hair and a reputation for destroying unfaithful spouses in court. His office walls were lined with legal books and framed case victories. The life insurance policy, Thomas said, sliding documents across his mahogany desk. $500,000 payout. We've changed the beneficiary from Jane back to your sister. Same with your 401k, $320,000. Your company shares, valued at approximately $800,000, are already in a trust you established before marriage. She has no claim to those. I signed each page, my pen scratching across paper that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Each signature was another piece of the life I was dismantling. What if she finds out before I confront her? I asked. Thomas leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. She won't. And even if she does, there's nothing she can do. You're not hiding assets. You're reorganizing them within legal bounds. A spouse can change beneficiaries at any time for any reason. You're protecting what you built before and during the marriage. Preparation isn't a crime, Edwin. It's survival. I looked at the documents, my life reduced to legal language and dollar amounts. When did marriage become war? Thomas's expression softened slightly, the only human moment I'd seen from him. When someone fired the first shot. You're not the aggressor here. You're just refusing to be a casualty. I thought about my mother then, how she'd been blindsided by my father's affair, how she'd scrambled and suffered because she never saw it coming. I thought about my father, how he'd methodically prepared while she lived in ignorance. I'd sworn I'd never be blindsided. But I'd never imagined I'd need to use those lessons on the woman I married. Back in our kitchen, Jane's rage collapsed into something else, a different tactic. She sat back down, her voice softening, tears making her mascara run in dark streaks down her cheeks. Edwin, please. Can we talk about this? Really talk? I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can rebuild trust. 7 years of marriage has to mean something. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. Divorce papers already signed by me, dated and notarized. I unfolded them slowly and placed them in front of her, smoothing out the creases. I filed 2 weeks ago, I said quietly. You'll be served officially tomorrow by a process server, but I wanted to give you these myself. Professional courtesy. Jane stared at the papers, her face crumbling. You don't want to fight for us? For what we built together? For the first time since she walked through the door, I let emotion crack through my controlled exterior. My eyes stung, my throat tightened. I did fight, Jane. I fought by refusing to be the fool who pretended not to see. I fought by protecting myself from more damage. I fought by choosing truth over false hope. I fought by respecting myself enough to walk away. You never even gave me a chance to explain, she whispered, fresh tears spilling. You had 6 months of chances. I stood up, my chair scraping softly. Every time you said, I love you while texting him. Every time you kissed me goodbye before going to his bed. Every time you came home smelling like his cologne and climbed into bed next to me. You chose Jane. Every single day you chose. I'm just finally respecting your choice. Jane reached out and grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. What about Jonathan? What are you going to do about him? I looked down at her hand on my arm, remembering when that touch used to comfort me. Now it just felt like a stranger's. I pulled my phone from my pocket again, opened my text messages and pulled up a thread. Let me show you something about Jonathan. About the man you threw away 7 years for. I scrolled to messages from the past 48 hours. Jane's text to Jonathan. I'm going to tell Edwin everything tonight. I can't keep living this lie. Jonathan's response came 3 hours later. Are you sure? Maybe wait until after the Henderson deal closes? Jane grabbed for my phone, but I held it away. There's more, I said. Her next message, I need you to be there for me. This is going to be so hard. His response, of course babe. We'll figure it out together. Then I scrolled to a message I'd sent Jonathan yesterday from a burner number. This is Edwin Rodriguez. I know everything. Every hotel, every lie, every moment. Enjoy your freedom. Jonathan's response came after 3 hours of what I imagine was panicked deliberation. Man, I'm sorry. I didn't know she was that serious about you guys. This got out of hand. I switched to Jane's phone app, pulled up Jonathan's contact and showed her the screen. His number was blocked. Red icon clear as day. He blocked you yesterday afternoon, 4 hours after I contacted him. Jane's face showed something I'd never seen before, complete devastation layered on top of shock. She wasn't just losing her marriage. She was realizing the man she'd risked everything for had already discarded her like a used tissue. Try calling him, I said, my voice almost gentle now. Go ahead. With shaking hands, Jane pulled out her phone and dialed. The automated message was immediate. The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. He was never going to leave his bachelor life for you, Jane. You weren't an upgrade to him. You were a convenience. A distraction. Something exciting between his real priorities. You were never his future. You were his present, and now you're not even that. Jane collapsed forward onto the kitchen table, her body shaking with sobs that sounded violent, primal. For 3 full minutes, I stood there watching my wife of 7 years fall apart. The woman I'd proposed to on a beach in Oregon. The woman who'd worn a white dress and promised forever. The woman who'd shared my bed, my dreams, my life. But I watched her carefully, the way a programmer debugs code looking for patterns. I'd seen Jane cry before. Real tears. When her grandmother died 2 years ago, she cried in my arms for hours, her grief raw and unfiltered. When she didn't get the promotion she wanted 4 years ago, she cried tears of frustration and disappointment. When we watched The Notebook on our 3rd anniversary, she cried at the beautiful sadness of it. Those tears were real. These were different. Between sobs, I watched her check her phone screen. Once, twice, 3 times, looking for messages that weren't coming. I watched her glance at the manila folder, then at the divorce papers, calculating. Her tears weren't grief. They were fury wrapped in victimhood. She wasn't sad our marriage was ending. She was angry that she wasn't controlling how it ended. You're not crying because you love me, I said quietly, the words landing like stones in still water. You're crying because you lost. Jane looked up, mascara streaked down her face in dark rivers, and for just a moment the mask slipped completely. Her expression wasn't heartbreak. It was pure rage, the anger of someone who'd been outmaneuvered, outsmarted, beaten at a game she thought she was controlling. You think you're so smart? Her voice was raw but steady. You think you won? I picked up the manila folder, tucking it under my arm. I think I refuse to lose. There's a difference. I walked toward the front door, my footsteps echoing in the house that no longer felt like home. At the doorway I stopped, my hand on the frame. The house is yours until the divorce finalizes. I'll stay at my sister's. Edwin, wait. Jane's voice stopped me and something in her tone made me turn around. She was standing now, wiping her face with the back of her hand, composing herself with visible effort. When she looked at me again, her expression had changed, softer, more vulnerable, calculated. There's something you don't know, she said quietly. Something important. I stood in the doorway, every instinct screaming at me to leave, but curiosity held me there. What? Jane took a deep breath, her hand moving to her stomach in a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times in movies but never expected in my own life. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. For a moment, just a flash, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Could it be true? The timeline raced through my mind. If she was pregnant, was it mine? Was it Jonathan's? Was this real or just another manipulation? I walked slowly back to the table and sat down. "Show me the test." Jane hesitated, her hand still on her stomach. I haven't taken one yet. But I'm late and I've been feeling nauseous in the mornings and I just know." "You're not pregnant, Jane." My voice was flat, factual. "You've been on birth control for 4 years. Nuvaring changed monthly. I've seen the pharmacy receipts. You refilled your prescription 2 weeks ago, January 15th. I have the receipt." Her composure cracked like ice under pressure. "I could have stopped taking it. I could have." "You didn't? Because Jonathan doesn't want kids. You told him that on your 3rd trip together. November 8th, at dinner at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse in San Diego. You said, and I quote from the recording my investigator obtained, 'Don't worry, I'm on birth control. Kids aren't in my plan right now.'" Jane's hand dropped from her stomach. The last weapon in her arsenal, removed before she could even fully deploy it. "That's the difference between us," I said, standing again. "You've been improvising lies for 6 months. I've been collecting truth." 3 days later, I sat in a coffee shop on Northwest 23rd Street, the same coffee shop where Jane and I had our first date 7 years ago. We'd sat by the window talking for 4 hours straight about everything and nothing, about our dreams and fears and favorite childhood memories. I'd known that day I was going to marry her. My phone rang. "Thomas Brennan, my attorney." "Papers are served," he said without preamble. "She signed this morning. Didn't contest anything. It's done, Edwin. 90 days and you're free." I hung up and sat there, staring at my untouched coffee. Around me, the cafe buzzed with life. Baristas calling out orders, students typing on laptops, a young couple at the next table holding hands across the table, laughing at some private joke. They looked the way Jane and I used to look. People say divorce is failure. But staying in a lie is a slow death, a drowning where you're conscious the entire time. Jane didn't leave me, she left us a long time ago, probably the first time she kissed Jonathan, maybe even before that when she started feeling trapped by the routine of our life together. I just refused to live in the corpse of what we were. I opened my laptop, not to work but to a travel website I'd been secretly browsing for weeks. Iceland. Northern Lights. Solo hiking. Things I'd always wanted to do but Jane always vetoed because she didn't like the cold, didn't like the isolation, didn't like anything that wasn't carefully curated and Instagram-worthy. I booked a 2-week trip leaving in a month. First-class ticket. Expensive hotel. Dog sledding and glacier hiking in hot springs under midnight stars. My phone buzzed with a text from Jane. "I hope you find whatever you're looking for." I read it once, then deleted it without responding. I already found it. It's called self-respect. 3 months later, I launched my own software company. Jane moved back to Ohio to live with her parents. Jonathan married a 26-year-old marketing coordinator from his company. Some endings aren't tragedies. They're corrections.